feel that whoever, even a pig, if is seeking refuge, still you need to. That's
good news for you,
proud,
isn't it?
Yeah.
Of human history, yes, it is. Fath Makkah, or the conquest of Mecca, the time where it is demarcated in human history, where Islam started to proliferate, really, if you think about it, outside of its own geographical borders. This is when Mecca was conquered by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is the time where we can analyze the behaviors, the psychologies of not just the Prophet himself, but his companions as well. And in fact, by looking at some of the things that have happened in the Fath of Mecca, or the conquest of Mecca, we're also able to see the extent to which Islam is, quote unquote, a religion of violence, a religion of barbarism, of backwardness, of killing the people, innocents, and so on. Because we will see the magnanimous nature of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the forgiving nature of this man. Because let me tell you something before we start. I should say this, that many people look at the life of the Prophet and they say, look at him. He's a man that was obsessed with war, a man that was engaged in military warfare all of his life, a man who inspired those people to conquer all these territories and colonize the world and so on and so forth. This is probably the most long-standing moral argument against Islam. In fact, Montgomery Watt himself states that. Interestingly, I was looking at his assessment in his book about the Seerah, and Montgomery Watt doesn't mention anything about the age of Aisha in there at all, zero. From what I remember, he does not mention it. He has a brief mentioning of Zainab bint Jahsh, but he supposes that really, he's saying this himself in the 1900s, before the New Age, before whatever happened, that the greatest moral argument against Islam is an argument from violence. Because once again, the medieval Christians, for example, the Crusaders and the Spanish Christians and all these other Christian nations, they needed to make sense of their own defeat. So instead of mentioning that this is a success from the Muslims, that this is barbarism, this is violence, this is so on and so forth. But I say that this Fath Makkah is one of the best evidences as an argument against this notion. We spoke about it before, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, and the Treaty of Hudaybiyah actually was amenable to other people coming in and attaching themselves to the protection of either the Qurayshis or the Muslims. So you had two major tribes, the Khuza'a and the Banu Bakr. And historically, the Qurayshis were connected to the Khuza'a tribe, which is a major tribe. And the Qurayshis had the pact with Banu Bakr, the polytheist Qurayshis. So in the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, the Muslims had allied themselves with Khuza'a, and the Qurashi pagans had allied themselves with Banu Bakr, which means, as you'd know if you studied even 20th century history, that an attack on the tribe is like the attack on the protectors of the tribe. The Banu Bakr decided to attack the Khuza'a, and don't forget, the Khuza'a were under the protection of the Muslim people. But what was more troubling and disturbing was that the Khuza'a decided to attack, the Banu Bakr decided to attack the Khuza'a with the tacit permission of the Qurayshis, the pagan Arabs. They knew it, and they let it happen. And bear in mind that for a long time now, the Muslims had been a dominant force. They could have gone in with force and broken the agreement, but as we said before, the word is your honor. And Islam, the idea is your word is your honor. You cannot break an agreement unless they break it first. And as such, now, officially, the contract had ended. However, the Prophet ﷺ did not announce this to the people. Because had he announced this, they would have tried to A, either reconcile, or B, they would have been prepared for defense. In either case, it would not be in the interest, the political interest of the Muslim people. Abu Sufyan, who now, as we remember, he was the guy who was the general in Uhud and so on and so forth. Now probably the undisputed leader. He is the undisputed leader of Mecca. Abu Sufyan is the undisputed, because who else can take his place? But now he knows that there is the balance of power has changed. And as such, he goes to Al-Medina to try and seek some kind of reconciliation. The idea anyone can give you protection. And let me pop quiz. When was the time when we spoke about last time where somebody gave somebody a protection who was non-Muslim? So a Muslim gave a non-Muslim protection. Who remembers? Huh? Who? Yeah, go on. What's her name? The Prophet Muhammad's daughter. No, not Fatima. Zainab. Yeah, Zainab. Yeah, there you go. Zainab. And what's her husband called? Abu al-As. Yeah, so she was given. It's unfair if you get involved here. We usually ask you for the answers. And the protection was given. So what's really interesting is that the Sirah writers say that the Prophet ﷺ didn't tell anybody about what he was going to do. He didn't even tell his wife. He didn't Aisha, and he didn't even tell Abu Bakr Siddiq, his closest friend. He didn't tell anybody about anything. And 10,000 fighters gathered. And there's a famous story. I'm not going to go into too much detail about this, but there's a famous story of Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. Now this guy called Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a, basically he sent a letter to his family in Mecca warning them that the Prophet ﷺ was going to come and that the Muslims are coming. And when the Muslims found out about that, Umar wanted to kill him. He said, let me kill this munafiq, let me kill this guy, this kafir. He made takfir of him, which is very interesting and important actually, because the Prophet ﷺ corrected this notion. He said he wasn't a kafir, he wasn't a disbeliever, and that in fact, because he was a person of Badr. Now there's so many discussions about this in Aqidah. They say, well, the reason why the Prophet ﷺ gave him concession was because he was a Badri, was because he went to Badr. Others say, no, it wasn't, it couldn't be, because how could it be that Badr makes you it gives you Aqidah immunity, for example. Like, in the Quran it says, وَلَئِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. For example, Allah says to the Prophet Muhammad himself, وَلَئِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ وَلَا تَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. That I will destroy your deeds and you will be of the losers. Allah saying that to the Prophet Muhammad. He's saying, if you do shirk, I'll destroy you. Which means that when it comes to Aqidah issues or issues to do with theology, no one has an exception card. You can't say, oh, because I went to Badr, or I went there, therefore I can do shirk and I'm kufr.
What was that shirk?
No, that's what I'm saying. So the idea is that you have a group of people out there that say that if you ally with the disbelievers in any wajh min al-awjuh, any way, shape or form, if you ally with the disbelievers, you're a disbeliever. And that is usually the view of the takfirists, people like ISIS, people like Al-Qaeda. But the story of Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a, because the reason why he done this, he sent a letter. He was asked, why did you do this? He said, the reason why I did it is because everyone else has a connection with Mecca. Everyone else has people to protect them there. I don't have anyone there. So I wanted to tell because I got my mum is there, my sisters are there. I wanted to tell them, just in case, if anything happened, I could say, well, I warned you before. I could get some favor from them, yeah, so they don't kill me. So basically it was dunyawi maslaha. It was to do with the dunya. Okay, now it was clearly wrong. It was haram. You could even see it was kabira min al-kaba'ir. It was very bad deed, very bad sin, very bad whatever. But the fact that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ did not call it shirk or kufr is evidence that it was not shirk or kufr. Which is also evidence that allying yourself with disbelievers, even if it may look like it's against the believers, is not always an evidence that that person has committed kufr and shirk. You know the hadith, it says that those who go into Badr, is as if Allah said, do whatever you want. It's as if they've taken that literally. So what is it? Islam has become like a Christianity. You believe in one thing, is die for the sins, finished. You can commit shirk even. What is this? What are you saying? So what I'm saying is that is the view of takfir, of people like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and other groups is readily defeated or repudiated or refuted by the case study of Hatim ibn Abi Balta'a. Hatib ibn Abi Balta'a. The miraculous aspect of this story is that the Prophet ﷺ already knew about this. And remember, wallahi, this is such a powerful angle in terms of arguing for the case of Islam. He not only knew, because what Hatib did was he got this letter and he sent it with this woman who was like inconspicuous woman, and she put it between her braids or in her hair or something like that, and she went away and she was going to give it to the people of Mecca. The Prophet ﷺ told Ali ibn Abi Talib and another Sahabi, which I forget who it is now, Zubair ibn Awam, he told them both to go and get the letter. He said, listen to this, the Prophet ﷺ said it's going to be with this woman in this place at this time, and it's not going to be there. Look at what happened. Imagine this, yeah? Ali ibn Abi Talib approached the woman and Zubair ibn Awam, yeah? They approached her and said, give me the letter. She goes, what are you talking about? I don't have any letter. He goes, Ali said, we have not been lied to. The Prophet has not been lied to, and we have not been lied to. Give me the letter. Now, this, by the way, is on the same level of إن قالها فقد صدق. You know when Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when the Isra al-Mi'raj happened, and they were saying, your friend is saying such and such and such. He said, if he said it, it's telling the truth. Ali, now you've got a woman here, it's not visible that she has any letters with her, but Ali is saying, if the Prophet told us, there's no doubt you have the letter. He's not saying maybe we got it wrong, maybe it's the wrong woman. Like, do you know what I mean? You see the confidence. No, you got the letter. You got the letter. Give me the letter. Give me the letter. Oh, no. Give me the letter, otherwise we're going to strip you now, sorry to say. But the idea is that she said, turn around. She also had this kind of idea of haya, and she took the letter from her hair or wherever she had it, and she gave it to them. The letter was there. The last person to become muhajir in Islam was Al-Abbas, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. And he was coming to Al-Madinah at the same time as the Prophet ﷺ, the army was marching. So they kind of saw them like that. Abu Sufyan was given protection. Remember, he was searching for protection from anyone now, from the boy, from this one, the humiliation ritual and all that stuff. But he was eventually given protection by Al-Abbas. Al-Abbas is new convert, new Muslim, and his story of conversion is interesting. The way he converted, once again, was due to something that no one could have known. The Prophet said that you said such and such to your wife in your room. And this shows you, by the way, you'll see a trend. A lot of people becoming Muslim in the companions of the Prophet due to information that Prophet couldn't have known. Which shows you, as we were talking before the break, the idea of prophecies, yes, in giving da'wah is something very powerful. Like in Deuteronomy 18 verse 20. Yeah. You know, that you will know that one of the portents is that, you know, that they will prophesize, and when they prophesize they will not be false in that. So the idea is, when the Prophet ﷺ is giving information that they couldn't have known because he wasn't there, he wasn't present, that's almost as good as a prophecy. A prophecy is more powerful, by the way. And note that these people, they only needed just one equivalent of prophecy and they became Muslim. Nowadays you give someone 10 or 20 predictions of the future and they still would not be accepting it. Very, very specific predictions of Islam in the future, about the interest, about STDs, about the buildings and the infrastructure, everything. They still say, you know what, there's more that needs to be said. So he becomes Muslim. And what's really interesting and what's very powerful, and I'll tell you why this is interesting and important in fact as well, is that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that whoever enters the man dakhala baytahu kana aminan, or kama qala sallallahu, whoever goes into the house of Abu Sufyan is going to be safe. There were sanctuaries, public sanctuaries, that the Prophet ﷺ designated, that if you go into those public sanctuaries, that you'll be safe. And one of those places was the Haram, al-Makki, and the other one was the house of Abu Sufyan, just to maybe help him regain his prestige after such humiliation. One of the attacks of Islam, they say, you know, when the Prophet ﷺ came into Mecca, as we're coming to see now, when he came into Mecca, is a very famous hadith that says, "Idhabu fa antum at-tulaqa." Yeah, leave because now you are let go. Now the hadith mentions that everyone was there, and the Prophet ﷺ said that, you know, you're forgiven to the people. You're forgiven. He said, "Idhabu fa antum at-tulaqa." Some scholars I've seen have made tahseen of that hadith. They said the hadith is hasan. It's also mentioned, "La tathriba alaykum al-yawm," the same thing that was mentioned by Yusuf alayhi salam, that there's no blame on you today, yani go, because you are let go, yani. Go the tulaqa. Hadith. Forget, if you don't like the hadith, find some scholars have made tahseen of that hadith. But there's another hadith which says that man dakhala bayta Abi Sufyan fahuwa amin. Whoever goes into the house of Abu Sufyan is amin, is protected. Whoever goes into the Kaaba is protected. Whoever goes to this other place is protected. So in other words, this other hadith, it substitutes the idhabu fa antum tulaqa for those who say, well, there's no evidence that the Prophet ﷺ forgave the people when he went into Mecca.
What you just said. So the Prophet ﷺ gave this mercy to his enemies, right? Now, if you look at warfare today and you look at the experts of warfare like Robert Greene, who's spoken at West Point, he's taken as the authority. Law 15 of the 48 laws of power is crush your enemies totally. But here the Prophet ﷺ is not following that law. So what we find is that even military strategists today haven't achieved the level at which the Prophet ﷺ was operating at. Because from the Allies' perspective, when they destroyed Dresden, when they did these things, there was no idea of mercy. But Islam actually has certain inbuilt mechanisms which the Western world doesn't have, which other military philosophers like Sun Tzu doesn't have. And what it goes to show is that you can't take the best tools in Western academia and try to measure the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ is the standard by which everything else is measured.
And that's exactly what Montgomery Watt says. He says that we need to see about the Prophet ﷺ's character if there's something we can incorporate rather than the opposite way around. What happened was, so they had the Prophet ﷺ assembled 10,000 people, and they were now marching towards Mecca. And there's some hadith talking about what kind of dress the Prophet ﷺ was wearing. He's wearing like a, the head covering. And there's some hadith, that's a Sahih hadith. There's some other hadith talking about how he was postured, saying that he was very humbly postured. Like, he wasn't coming in brazenly. He was coming in now as a conqueror, but he wasn't coming in brazenly, which shows you the demeanor of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, that he was deplete from this grandiosity. He didn't have a grandiose demeanor. He wasn't about that, which, by the way, itself is an interesting thing. And the Prophet ﷺ told them not to fight anybody. Now, there was one exception to that, where the Prophet ﷺ allowed fighting to happen for, it said, sa'atan bin nahar, like an hour in the daytime. And that was because, if you think about it psychologically, if these tribes didn't settle their differences, don't forget the Khuza'ah had been attacked by the Banu Bakr, and they wanted to get retribution. If he didn't allow any of that, then it could have caused more issues. Because the thing is, resentment and anger and embitterment, if it's not dealt with through an outlet, it can actually cause more problems. So it's a very strategic thing, but it was a limited thing. Clearly, what was meant was for there to be complete peace. And he came in very humbly, but he destroyed the idols. This is a very symbolic thing. It was said that there was 360 idols around the Kaaba. You'll know the story where he destroyed them with the stick. He pointed at them and then they fell on their faces and broke and so on.
Wow, this was interesting. I hope you learned as much as I did. If yes, please like and subscribe, and I see you tomorrow, inshallah.